Okay, so throughout this slide, if you have any questions, feel free to write in the chat, and then we'll also have a Q&A at the end. So again, thanks for being here today. A brief overview of what we are going to go through today. There we go. So today we'll take you through who we are and who you'll be working with to prepare for your Erasmus study. We'll also go over some of the important documentation that you will need to complete and submit. This includes your Erasmus grant application form and your grant agreement. We'll also go over what's needed for your academic preparation. This would be your learning agreement. We'll go over some things like insurance and visas. We'll leave you with a bit of a to-do list. We'll go over some readiness and how to help prepare yourself for your time abroad. And then again, we'll open it up to Q&A, but feel free to write questions in the chat as we go along. All right, so who are we? So my name is Kristen, and I am the Erasmus executive. That means I kind of manage all mobility for both students and staff, so those that are incoming and yourselves that are going out to study, as well as managing the university partnerships. And then here we have Jody, who knows all things outbound. She's our outbound coordinator. She's the person behind the Outgoing Erasmus email address and who you'll be communicating a lot with to fill out your paperwork. And this is where we are located. And these are our email addresses. So should you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us here. So before we jump in, just a little bit of what is Erasmus. So what it stands for is the European Community Action Scheme for the Mobility of University Students. So it really is the European Union's flagship mobility program in education and training to enhance the European dimension of higher education and increase student and staff mobility. So the University of Galway has been involved since the start in 1987. And how Erasmus works is by agreements between universities. So these are bilateral exchanges. So you guys are going to a university and they will be sending students here. And how the base of it works is that you don't pay tuition at the university that you are going to be attending. You maintain your status as a student here at the University of Galway. You'll pay fees here, but there's a way where you will get credits for your time abroad. So you get to have this great experience and receive credits for your time and the courses that you take abroad. Erasmus has a couple flagship areas, mobility being the first. So this is allowing individuals to train and learn abroad. You get to learn a different culture, open your horizons. There are some others, which are inclusion and diversity. So this is making sure that everybody has an opportunity to be mobile in their education and training. Hand in hand with this is an increase in digital mobilities as well as sustainability. So throughout, your Erasmus, you might be seeing things about sustainability, finding ways to travel sustainably. So what's in it for you? So hopefully you're excited about it, but you will create some amazing memories, make international friends. It's a great experience to experience another culture, to improve your language skills or learn a new language. Helping your communication is always helpful. You'll really get to dig down deep and broaden your horizons, grow as a person, and really gain some valuable skills. And there also are a lot of academic benefits. There's quite a bit of data that shows that participation is seen very positively by employers. So undergoing this Erasmus study period can help your future self when you're looking for a job. There's a lot of benefits, both personally and academically, you will gain out of your Erasmus time. And I think this quote sums it up well. Traveling is still the most intense mode of learning. So you'll learn a lot of skills. You'll learn about yourself, and as you learn about another culture, about people. So we'll dive into now some of the key documentation that you'll see in order to receive your Erasmus grant. And this is the funding that will help you during your time abroad. So the first thing I want to highlight, it's linked here, and it's on our webpage, is the Outgoing Handbook. So this is your go-to guide for all things Outgoing Erasmus. We definitely recommend that you read this handbook and reference it when, are they actually seeing those notes?
I'm not sure.
No, I just realized that. Oh, we'll keep going. Sorry. So you will see the handbook. So this is on our webpage. This is all things outgoing. As I said, we definitely recommend you read this. It has all of the information and guidance on how to complete all of the forms and any information that you need. And this should really be your first go-to place to reference to answer questions. And then you can email us if you still have questions after that. So after the handbook, there are now two key documents for you to do first. Your first is your grant application form, and then following that, your grant agreement. So you have to do the application first and then the agreement. So the Erasmus grant application form is an online application that Jody will be sending you. Here we are announcing the deadline as the 30th of May at 5 p.m. So please note this deadline. We can't accept late applications for this. So make sure that you get this grant application in on time. So following your grant application form, this enables you to fill out your grant agreement. And this is how you're ultimately going to get funded. So it's very important that you fill out these two pieces of documentation. So before you get started on filling out any of these, make sure that you have all of the information that you need and that you really do pay attention to things like spelling, making sure the numbers are correct. For instance, we will be collecting bank details here. If the numbers aren't correct, we can't pay you. So please make sure that you have all the information gathered ahead of time and that you fill them out carefully and appropriately. And just note that all of the information that we're asking has a purpose and helps us to create our database so that we can provide you with all the information you need to go on your time abroad. So a little bit more about the grant application form and how to complete it. It's a fairly straight application form. There's just a few things that you should be aware of. So we ask that you please use your name as it appears on your passport. We also ask, just to be consistent throughout. So you can use one name unless you usually use two. When thinking about, do you want to use your Irish or English name, just use one and stick to it so that there's consistency. This will help us to process everything much more smoothly. It will ask for a home address. In this case, we ask that you use a permanent address, so not your university accommodation. Make sure you use a permanent. You will also be asked to use to select dates. So this is the dates of your estimated time abroad. And this you can gather by looking at your host university website. So this could be when courses start and when finals end. We do know that this is going to be an estimate. You don't know when your exact final is going to be, but this information should be on your host university website. So with all of this, before you start, gather some information like your bank account, your sort code. Again, this is how you're going to receive the funding, as well as do some investigation about what your estimated study dates are going to be. So how do you submit this form? As I said, it's very straightforward. You're going to submit it by your University of Galway Office 365 account. A lot of the information will be very straightforward. It's your name, address, bank information, but do make sure you fill it out carefully and do make sure you only fill it out once. Immediately after you submit it, you'll receive an email like this, and this is just going to confirm our receipt as well as provide some additional information. And again, note the deadline of the 30th of May, 2025 at 5 p.m. And make sure you give yourself enough time. As I said, it's straightforward, but it's always last minute when something goes wrong with your computer. So give yourself plenty of time to fill out this. Just note there is a question in the grant application about personal data. It's just going to ask you that you read and understood the University of Galway's data protection policy and that you agree to our collection, use, and storage of your data. The policy is linked here. And just as you know, as I said before, all of the questions serve a purpose. It's for us to make our databases so that we can ensure you get paid and that you have a safe journey and we can reach out to you. So everything does have a purpose and we do take your personal data seriously, but you will have to tick that you agreed to it on the grant application form. So with all of that, the grant application form, I said it's very straightforward. It's going to kick off the process of you being able to receive a grant for your Erasmus study. However, the deadline is very strict. So if you miss the deadline, unfortunately, you cannot be considered for an Erasmus grant. So you still might be able to attend as a zero grant student. That means you can still go on the study abroad period, but you won't be receiving any funding. And this is just a strict deadline that we have. We cannot consider late applications. So as I said, make sure that as soon as possible, you fill out your grant application form. And if you have any questions or queries, feel free to reach out to us. Okay, so after your application, that comes first, we move forward to then the grant agreement. So your grant agreement is a financial contract. It's between the University of Galway, yourselves, and the EU, and it's about your funding. The grant agreement has essentially the same information as your application. It's just now putting it into a financial contract. So for instance, you will fill out your bank details again. Again, this is how you're going to be funded. You will also check that you do have, for instance, in this case, insurance for your time abroad. You will sign, date, and return this to the outgoing Erasmus email that is listed here. And again, we say do this without delay because this is how you're going to get funded. So if we don't have this, we can't fund your time. So how much are you going to get and when are you going to get the funding? So these are the 24-25 rates. We do expect them to be similar for this next year. So the funding is based on how long you are abroad, but you'll basically get a certain amount of funding per month, and it goes by country. So to some regions, you'll get a bit more as the cost of living is higher. So for 24-25, the rates were 385 and 330 per month, depending on the country destination that you are attending. And this is why it's important that you put the dates down that you'll plan to be attending. So we will calculate, say you're going for a full year, for 10 months, we'll multiply that out based off of where you're going to figure out how much your grant is going to be. There also is an additional €250 top up based on your SUSI or SUSI status. This will be a question in the grant application form, and we will confirm this with the fees office. So depending on your status, you might be getting an additional 250 per month. So when will you receive this funding? So it comes in two installments. The main grant installment of about 80% of your estimated grant will be paid at the beginning of your study period. And then the remainder of the grant will be paid after the study period, provided all the necessary paperwork has been submitted. So just a note for any students with disabilities, there is a disabilities or exceptional needs grant available to assist with any additional costs in completing the Erasmus period abroad. So this could cover things like needing assistance during travel, needing an assistance, needing a guide dog. So if you have any queries about this, please feel free to reach out to us. We also recommend that students with disabilities who are registered with the disability office here, that you should inform your disability officer that you're going to study abroad. Again, this is not mandatory. It's something optional, and it won't interfere with your ability to go abroad or to get the grant. It's just a way to ensure that you get everything that you need and the appropriate resources are there for you. We also recommend you inform your host organization and let them know of all your support requirements, again, so that everything can be in place. None of this is going to hinder your ability to go. But we're open, contact us with any inquiries about this grant or how to go about contacting your host university about it. Okay, so as I mentioned, the Erasmus grant and the Erasmus agreement is a financial contract, which means there could be a breach of contract. So this is just for you to be aware of and to know. So a breach of contract occurs if you fail to complete the agreed study program. So when you fill out the application, you're putting in, I'm going for 2 semesters for this many months, or you fail to complete the minimum of 2 months abroad. So in this case, say you return home without completing the agreed study period, but have completed more than 2 months. So maybe you were planning on going for 2 semesters, but then you end up coming home after 1. So in this case, you will be asked to return a portion of your grant, because as your grant is based upon your estimated and planned time abroad. So if you were going for 10 months and we sent you grant money based on that, but you only went 5, you will be asked to return a portion of the grant. So this is again just for your knowledge if you do end early. And just a note for yourself as well that returning home without completing this year can have implications for your final degree and your fees at the University of Galway. But of course, if anything comes up during your time abroad, reach out to us, reach out to your academic advisor, and we'll do our best to help you and just help you be aware of anything that might come down the line. So I just went over everything for the financial side of it. So again, you'll have your application form comes first, and then the grant agreement you'll fill out next in order to get paid. So now that we went over the funding side of things, there are two key documents for that. I'll go over the academic preparation. So you will also have to apply to your host university. You should receive an email from them to apply. So please make sure that you look for that email and that you check the deadline and also adhere to that. At the same time, your host university might be asking you to apply for on-campus housing or providing you documentation about accommodation. This is a good time to start looking for accommodation. We do recommend applying for on-campus accommodation if required and of course if available. So do make sure you look for your email from your host university, you adhere to it, and that you begin to look for accommodation at this time as well. Your host university also may require a preliminary learning agreement to support your application. So we'll go into the learning agreement in the next slide, but this is your academic contract. So if this is the case, you're going to liaise with your University of Galway academic coordinator to do two things. You'll identify the courses you plan to take at your host university and the credits you will receive for your time abroad. A full list of the academic coordinators is in our handy dandy notebook. So again, this should always be a good reference point for you. So any questions about the learning agreement will go towards your academic coordinators. Something to note here as well, we do recommend for language students, but this is available for all of you, no matter what subject you're going to study. Are advised to take an OLS assessment. The website is here. So this will give you assessment at what language level you're at. Again, it's not going to hinder your ability to go abroad, but the key thing here is that after you complete the test, you will get free language courses. So this is a really great preparation for your time abroad. So this is not a requirement, but we do recommend this and to avail of the free courses. So again, the website is here. So now let's jump into our learning agreement. So as I mentioned, this is the academic contract, and it's between yourselves, the University of Galway, and your host university. It's going to state the courses you will take, the credits you will obtain and receive. And really, this is a way to make sure that what you do abroad is recognized by the University of Galway and that you will receive credits for it. It requires sign off by both academic coordinators. So you're one here at the University of Galway, as well as at the host university. We want to make sure you're receiving credit for everything. And if you have questions about this, please ask your academic coordinator here. And they can help you do things like choose your courses, make sure you're getting the right credits for it, and who your academic coordinator at your host university is. And again, there's a full list of academic coordinators in the handbook. When filling this out, there's one section you won't fill out in the beginning, and this section is called the mobility period. And this is for changes. So say, for instance, you plan on taking a certain amount of courses and you don't get into one, or you end up changing a course for some reason. This will be filled out during your mobility period, where you're going to say, oh, I'm going to change to this course. And just note that all changes also have to be approved by both academic coordinators. And this is, again, to make sure that you receive credit. So here's a screenshot of the original learning agreement as a paper form, but we and most universities now use an online learning agreement. This is helpful. It makes it easier to get signatures. But there's a detailed section in the Outgoing handbook about completing the learning agreement. So we do ask that you read this section of the handbook, and that if you have any questions after that, you reach out to your academic coordinator for help in filling out your online learning agreement. Okay, now we'll dig into some of the other details. So there are a few other things you will need before you go on your time abroad. You are going to need private travel insurance. This is a mandatory part of the Erasmus grant agreement contract. Note, we aren't going to be asking you what policy you have or what policy number you have, for instance, but you will have to check a box and sign that you do have private travel insurance and that it fulfills certain requirements. So we do have a page on our website that's listed here that goes over details of the insurance requirements and some things that you should be looking out for, things like policy limitations or exclusions. So we have a full list of things that you should ensure that you're covered for. This is everything from personal liability to medical expenses. For instance, if you have an existing health policy, check what's covered, compare it to what we have on our website. And then if you don't, and you're looking for new options, we do have a list of some providers on the website, but just note we aren't a broker. We can't tell you what insurance to get, but we do have a list of what you should be looking for. So please make sure you take a look at this website, look at any existing policy that you have, and start to look around for what might be a good insurance policy for yourselves. So please take a look at this webpage and start to look. We also say you should hold an EHIC, which is basically a health insurance card. And if you're eligible, you must hold this. So you can go to the EHIC webpage to look at eligibility and sign up for one if you are eligible. So there's two aspects to your insurance. You must have private insurance and you must hold the European health insurance card if eligible. So start to look into these two. Okay, now a question about visas. So it is up to you to determine if you need a visa and if you need to apply for one. But if you are not an EU citizen, you might need one for your destination country. So just do a bit of investigation ahead of time. So you can do, for instance, a Google search. You can check with your destination's embassy here in Ireland. And just a note that if you are a UK citizen who only hold a British passport, that this also applies for you. So this is just something to think about if you're not an EU citizen and to start the process because visas can take some time to apply for. And now for the fun part of preparation. So you have all these agreements, but the fun part now is, and just for yourself so you can be prepared, is to start to research your host university, to research the city and country that you'll be living in. We definitely recommend going to our university and tourism websites, read reports from our former students. There's some great advice there about what they learned, maybe what they would have done differently, or some tips. There are also travel book guides. There's also an Erasmus Plus app, which can be very helpful that you can download. There's also some websites, such as Here Is Just Landed, that has culture sections that might be very helpful in your preparations. We also recommend that you consult the Department of Foreign Affairs website. This will also give you information about the country you will be attending. This will give you some advice on maybe some country-specific laws, some safety. We also recommend that you register your destination location with the Department of Affairs as well. And then thirdly, that you do note the contact details for either the Irish embassy or consulate within your host country. Hopefully you won't need those, but it's always good to be prepared. So please look up things that might be different, and register your destination with the Department of Foreign Affairs as well. So to summarize a bit of some things for your to-do list, you will receive a link, and that's not here, for the application for your grant. So make sure you get that in on time. Some things else on your to-do list: arrange for your EHIC where eligible. So please go to that website and sign up if you're eligible, and start to arrange for your travel insurance. Please also make sure that your passport is valid for at least 6 months after your planned final return trip home. Set up an online banking that can be used in your host country. We also suggest consider getting an international student card. This might help you with some discounts on things. So definitely look into getting that. Off the top of that, as well as research accommodation in your destination city and town. Get started on that research, where you might want to live at, what are some good areas for students to be in, and what types of accommodation are available. I know many of you might not be on Facebook anymore, but if you are, we do have a Facebook group. We will be posting information there as well. So if you are still on Facebook, please join the University of Galway Outgoing Erasmus. Again, this isn't mandatory, but it's just where we will be posting some information as well. And then just note on some things we'll be sending you. So we will send you a letter of nomination confirming that you're a Erasmus student status. We will be sending you your grant agreement. And remember, this is post a grant application form. So just think application I have to do first, then I'll get my agreement. So make sure that you do those two things. We'll also send you the student charter, the timeline, and a safety advice sheet. And just your final reminder that if you don't get your grant application in on time, we can't give you a grant. So if you would like funding for your Erasmus time abroad, please make sure you get this in on time. Again, the deadline is the 30th of May, 2025 at 5 p.m. Okay. So now that we've gone over some of those important documentations, your grant application form, your grant agreement, and your learning agreement, we're now just going to highlight some things about readiness, both academic and emotional, just to start to prepare yourself. So the first thing I'd like to highlight is academic readiness. So it might sound cheesy, but when you go abroad, you are an ambassador for both your country and university. So this means that people will be forming judgments about the Irish, about the University of Galway, and about University of Galway students based on your behavior and attitude. So just be aware that how you act and behave will reflect the larger reputation of the University of Galway. And I hope that you're all proud to be getting a degree from the University of Galway, and you want it to have a good reputation, that its students are top class and the students do show up and they have a good attitude and they work hard. So just note that your behavior and attitude will contribute to the reputation of University of Galway, its students, and its ultimate degrees that you will be going out into the workforce with. So with that, again, nobody's expecting perfection. You are here to learn and grow. But we do say, have a good attitude, have a good behavior, and show up with that positive attitude and willingness to work. So just some things to be aware of in the academic setting. Things might be different than they are here at the University of Galway. So just going in knowing that it might be different and a willingness to learn. So things like class sizes might be completely different. You might be utilizing different course sites, and the university may use those course sites differently. There might be very different rules of engagement within the classroom. And class style might be very different than what you're used to. So just go in with an open mind and a willingness to learn. And the best ways to do this are really just to ensure that you're always utilizing professionalism. So this can be seen, for instance, of utilizing proper email etiquette that can go a really long way in setting up a good positive attitude. Pay attention to things like the course rules, read the course syllabi to see how things are done at that university and in that course. Most universities might have ambassadors. They will have various resources. Please take advantage of them as needed to really learn about how things are done at that university. And if you have questions, respect goes a long way. So just be respectful in your courses and to the way things are done within that culture and that university. And of course, we want you should all have academic integrity. So make sure that you're doing everything up to standard and you're following all the regulations and rules. And on the other hand, we have some things like emotional readiness. So culture shock is something that the majority of you are going to experience. So culture shock is the impact of moving from a familiar culture to one that is unfamiliar. And it can have a whole host of different symptoms that can range from things like boredom, anxiety, feeling really tired, isolation. And there's a lot of different causes to it. It could really be a shock to the nervous system by being in a totally new environment, learning new ways, learning a totally new culture and way of doing things. Also being separated from people you're used to being around, losing your familiar routines, and just everything is new. New sights, sounds, foods can be totally different, climate and language. And just note that this can happen at any time to things both big and small. So I'll just give a brief example. You might know from my accent that I'm not from Ireland. And I remember when I first moved here, I experienced the biggest culture shock with something extremely small. I was at work and I asked where the garbage can was, and everybody laughed. And it wasn't, mean, but it was just people expected the word bin, not the words garbage can. But it was in that moment, and I can distinctly remember it, It was only probably about 30 seconds, but I had this very, very intense culture shock, and everything went through my mind of, do I belong here? What's happening? And then it passed and I laughed about it. But just a heads up that this is extremely common. It can happen when something really big, or you just say the word garbage can as something very small.
Or even just garbage. Garbage is rubbish.
Yeah, I know. So, yes, we're North Americans here. But as you see that, I just want you to know that it's very common. It's going to happen to most of you. It can happen to something big or small. But just note that it should pass and that you're not alone. And that's something that, you can learn to grow in that discomfort and learn a lot about yourself and learn a lot of great skills that will help you every time you do something new, like when you start a new job. But some things that can help you get through it: contact your family and support groups on a regular basis. Bring something familiar with you. And for a lot of people, this might be a familiar piece of food with you. Find something familiar like a hobby or a club to join to help anchor yourself. But if problems do arise, and there's nothing wrong with that, please contact us at Outgoing Erasmus. Contact your University of Galway academic coordinator, or if you are in stress, you can still contact the Galway Counseling Service online. So please be aware of these resources and avail of them if problems do arise. So to kind of end with, I'm going to highlight some of the key challenges that our students returning have faced. So when we ask students, what were your key personal challenge? The first one is adjusting to living alone. The second is having to adopt to certain foods. And the third is adapting to the expenses of living abroad. So with that, the key advice from returning students is to budget. As I mentioned, you're receiving about 80% of your grant up front. So you do want to make sure that you don't spend that all in your first month. So please budget your money so that you have it throughout the course of your study period. The second key advice from returning students is to try the new food. So feel free to get out there and try the new food. The last one is to explore. Get out there, see the culture, learn from the people. Don't just stay within your cohort, learn, see the new city. And then lastly is to enjoy. You're there to learn, but it's also a cultural experience. So enjoy your time abroad. So of course, we wish you all a wonderful experience, and we're here to answer any of your questions. So I know some questions have been answered in the chat throughout, but please send in any additional questions that you may have.
Yeah, and if you want to type it into the chat, I can try to answer quickly. Or if I'm not sure if you're able to unmute yourself, you can just shout out a question. And or am I muted? Oh, hold on. I'm supposed to be muted. So yeah. And I can try to answer. Don't be shy. If you are shy and if a question kind of pops into your head later, please just send me an email at outgoingerasmus@universityofgalway.ie and I'll answer. Let me just see here. Okay. Didn't quite understand the part regarding online banking. Your grant payments are paid to you via electronic funds transfer. So that's just what we mean. Like, you probably have access to your bank account online where you can kind of log in and check to see if a deposit has been made. That's all we mean by it. I'm not sure if I misread this in the notes under slide 13. However, was there a bit about a travel grant? But yes, as part of your Erasmus grant, if you're going abroad next year, there's this thing called distance-based travel funding. So depending on how far away your Erasmus destination is, it's just a flat
it's a one-time.
It's included in your total grant, so it's not something that you need to apply for. It's just in addition to the monthly Erasmus grant. It's just usually a few €100 that's kind of added on. Will the disability service have the information on what disabilities receive the grant? If this is the extra funding that Kristen talked about, it's an application that has to be made directly to the HEA. So get in contact with me or Kristen if you think that you might be eligible for it, and we can give you some more information and talk to you about what the application may involve. Will we have access to the Canvas pages for University of Galway while in our host university? Possibly, maybe check with your academic coordinator about that.
Yeah, but you still have to pay your fees at the University of Galway. You're still a University of Galway student.
Mhm.
So I would say, as long as they don't close the courses and everything, but you can double check, but you can look if you're able to access courses from previous years, you likely still should be able to, but you're still a full University of Galway student. So do make sure you pay your fees
Yes, exactly.
for that. But yeah, and still check your University of Galway email and everything.
Where can we find these slides later? We will put a link to this video up on our website. If we need an enrollment confirmation admission letter to apply for student accommodation, what is this and where will we get it? It's probably, if it's a campus accommodation you're applying for your host university, you'll need a letter of enrollment from your host university. So contact the international office at your host university to ask about that. Where can we find the recording and slides? I've answered that. I'm going to put a link on our website. Do I need to inform Susie that I'm going abroad if my Susie grant was already awarded? I don't know about that. I will be in your nomination letter that I'm going to send out to everyone. There is that I know that letter is something that you can provide to Susie if that's something that they need, but maybe contact Susie directly and ask if they need to know that you're going abroad. The grant agreement, does it have the same deadline as a grant application form? No, you fill out the grant application form by the 30th of May. And then after that, I will send you the grant agreement as a separate document that you need to just fill in and sign. And that has to be returned to me before you leave to start your Erasmus study visit. So there's no set deadline, but it's just due before you leave. So no, the grant agreement and the grant application are separate. You do the grant application first, and I'm going to send you a link to that later today. And then I will send you the grant agreement document to sign. I need a European health insurance card that's valid for the entire year. Can't renew it until oh, that's fine. So
You still have one.
Yeah, so you have a valid one when you leave, and that's fine. Just make sure that you do renew it before it expires. I'm in general science, so I need to pick my module and electives next year, even though I won't be there. You won't be picking University of Galway modules. I'm not sure what your question is. Talk to your academic coordinator about what modules you should pick to take at your host university next year. If you're asking about whether you should choose, if you're coming back to Galway for semester 2, and if you're asking about those modules, again, just talk to your academic coordinator about that. The university hasn't sent out a confirmation that you have a place yet and you've applied for a full academic year. A lot of host universities are still in the period where they're accepting student nominations from coordinators, so they may not have closed their nomination window yet, so it's not unusual that you haven't heard from them yet. If you're nervous, contact your host university, just email the international office and ask. That's never a bad thing to do. But that's separate from the Erasmus grant application form. So whether or not you've heard from your host university, please make sure you fill out the Erasmus grant application form via the link that I'm going to email to you. But please, yeah, if you're nervous, just contact your host university. Most international offices have a general incoming Erasmus email address you can use, and just say, hey, I'm meant to go there next year. Can you please tell me, have you received my nomination, and when can I hear back from you about application forms?
Yeah, so your funding comes from us on our side, so it is separate from there. And just for even students coming here to the University of Galway, they're still kind of being nominated until the 15th. So we also wouldn't have sent information out to the incoming here. So just to hopefully put your minds a little bit at ease. Yeah. But there are you might even look at the web pages of the international offices to get yourself some info.
Yeah, that's actually a really great suggestion. You should all go to the international office website for your host university, because they will have a lot of information up there about the whole application process and what they require in terms of the application form, what supporting documents you might need. So please take the initiative yourself and go and research what your host university needs from you. That's never a bad thing. So don't panic if you haven't heard from them, but it's always good to just have a look and contact them if you've got any questions. Do we need to have heard from our host before filling out the grant application? Nope. If your questions are, oh, that's Mairead, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, if you're a BCom, BIS, or BCA program student, please contact the study abroad officers in CARES with academic questions. Because I'm going to 2 different countries, will I receive the second grant application? Exactly, yeah. So if you're going to one host university in semester 1 and a different one in semester 2, you're just applying for the grant for semester 1 now. I'll be contacting all students who are going to a different or starting a new study visit in semester 2 later on in the autumn, because your grant amount may change. So if you're going, say, to Sweden in semester 1, but you're going to Spain in semester 2, you could get 2 different
Rates, yeah.
2 different grant rates. So you're just applying for semester 1 or full year if you're going to the same place for the full year. I will know who's going to a different host university in semester 2. I'll contact you later in the autumn, and there'll be another grant application due in November for that.
And there is, if you're interested, I have to look up the webpage, but it is on the general Erasmus webpage. There is a estimated grant calculator. So you can also, if you're thinking about how much you're going to get for where you're going, you put in like where you're traveling from, where you're going to, and it estimates off of the current grant rates how much money that you might be getting. So as we said, it's regulated, but it's based off of location. So that could be somewhere that you can look at for estimates as well.
Keeping in mind it's an estimate.
It's an estimate.
It's an estimate, yeah. In terms of visas, sometimes visas can be a tough thing to get. What happens if one does not get that approval ahead of time, or not at all? That's tough. We have had students in the past who have needed visas to go to do their Erasmus abroad and haven't received the visa. And that's just completely out of our hands. And
definitely start the process as soon as possible. Reach out to embassies here. We don't have control over that, but yeah, start that process as quickly as possible.
Exactly, yeah. My student ID is in Irish. However, my passport and all other documentation is in English. Should I just go with the English on the grant application? Oh, for the Erasmus grant application, either one is fine. Maybe the one, if your surname can be both Irish or English and you kind of transfer back and forth, usually, I mean, clearly from my accent as well, I'm not Irish, I wasn't born and raised here, but I've been here long enough to know the general, English and Irish versions. But if it matches your email address or what your academic coordinator would have given me for your name, then usually that's okay. But for the grant application, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, just as long as you're consistent, that fills out our database fine, and you're not up there twice or something.
Yeah, exactly. When doing the whole academic year in one, so if you're going abroad just for the full academic year to the same university, say you're going to Salamanca for the full academic year, you're just filling out the grant now, filling out the grant application now for the full academic year. Have I answered every question, or have we answered every question?
Any more questions?
Yeah, if there's any more, please
type. Yeah, and we're happy now. I can stop recording. So if anybody wants to speak up or anything, feel free.